How long did you fish out of kayak?
I did about 3 years.
How in the world do you pitch from a seated position? So did you have shorter rods when you fished out of kayak?
I actually went against the grain. I had longer rods.
Why?
For all the reasons people say you want longer rods. You
Fish just blew up.
make a longer cast. I thought that if I'm here and I have a longer rod, it gave me a little bit more advantage on a hook set. It's harder to net fish with longer rods on a kayak because your longer rod. And,
same way in a boat, yeah.
And you know, you're not as accurate, of course, but you know, I've always had a mixture, whether it be 7 foot to 7'6".
How many rods can you carry in a kayak?
How many do you want to carry?
Really? So you
I mean, you got a Hobie, you've got rod tubes on each side that'll probably hold 2 rods each, and there's, you know, 3 of them. So what's that? Six. So that's just 12 just going along, and then you can deck out your Kayak Crate to have another 8 or more right there. So you could definitely carry a lot. And then they have even holders that are molded into the kayak design, so maybe 2 more there. I mean, I've seen people with tons of rods.
No kidding. Yeah. So so you've gotten a chance to practice with some guys.
Yes, incredibly awesome opportunities to practice with Joe Thompson, who's won quite a bit of money. He's been an FLW Tour Pro before. He just placed 2nd in the All-American. Superb grass fisherman, just superb, just getting to see how someone breaks down a body of water, and you know how he makes decisions, and how we just were running around looking at things being like, nope, okay, this looks good, let's try this, you know, and just practicing, learning how to practice. No one, there's no book that says this is how you practice for a bass fishing tournament.
Right.
There's no book for that. You have to be on the water and learn that, and being able to practice with someone has helped me tremendously as a co-angler, because going into a tournament, you know, you're dialed in as a co-angler, and it's not the, oh, I just got off of a plane, I came in, and you know, next morning I'm going out fishing and hoping to catch a fish. You're like, no, if I get put in the right situation, I'm catching fish.
Plus you say, my spinnerbait, I caught 10 on it this week or 30 on it this week. I know I can get bit on this spinnerbait.
Exactly.
You got that confidence, because this game is all about the confidence.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, my 5th place on Champlain I was extremely confident that when I got in the right areas, I would catch fish. And you know, as a co-angler, I had to bide my time. The first day, had to really bide my time, and I didn't catch my 5th fish till we had 10 minutes left to go before we had to run back, and I caught my 5th fish. But it was one of those things. He put me in the right situation, started firing as fast as I could, bam, caught my 5th fish.
All right, so on the back deck, what makes you crazy that boaters do? That's going to change how you're a boater now.
Interesting. Something crazy that boaters do.
Going too slow, going too fast, obviously blocking you, which a guy can do.
Yeah. And I don't fault them for, you know, pointing the boat at something. I think trying to keep your boater off of something all day long, like your co-angler, trying not giving them a chance. Like if you're just sitting on a point and you're just keeping the front of the boat, and you're keeping them in 50 feet of water, and you're fishing that
This
hump.
is Texas. There's not 50 feet of water.
I've fished all over from Okeechobee all the way up, you know, so it, you know, just be fair to them in the sense of like, you ain't got to give them the first pitch, you ain't got to give them the second pitch, you ain't even got to slow down when you're rolling by something that you just picked apart. But just be fair. Recognize that guy may have put in a lot of money too, right? Because that's what you hear. Oh, they you know, they're just not paying as much. I just spent 2 weeks practicing for Champlain. I spent 2 weeks practicing for Thousand Islands. To say that I hadn't put in my time to try to do well in those tournaments is absolutely false. That I hadn't spent a large amount of money is false. And to say that, you know, if you can literally look into that guy's eyes as soon as he walks onto the boat and say, you know what, screw you today, this is all about me, I'm the only one that's going to be catching fish. If you can be that kind of guy, okay.
And there's some guys out there that can do that.
And there are some guys that can absolutely do that. And that's why I say, like, when they're just not fair, you know, because my Thousand Islands trip, I didn't do so hot the second day, and I think part of that was the boat positioning, but I don't fault the guy for doing it at all. I would do the exact same thing. I would make those drifts. I would camp my boat the exact same way, because he's a pro. He's got to catch fish. I understand that, and my job as a co-angler should be to adapt behind him and catch fish. And you know, I try my hardest to do that, but if you know, if it is one of those things where you're just like continuously 8 hours of trying to block that guy, yeah, that's gonna be a not so good day, just for that guy, and just, you know, overall.
Dadgum loud 2 strokes.
Hey, they have so much power to them, don't they?
We paused for a second there while those guys idled off. By the way, they just caught us fish on spinnerbait. Shoot, what was I gonna say? Oh, we're talking about, so again, my opinion is, we've been fishing these cypress trees up here. If you catch a fish behind me and it's a 6-pounder, yeah, crap, I wish I'd caught that fish, but I didn't. And look, by the way, so a smart co-angler does not do what I'm doing, right?
Right.
If I'm throwing a buzzbait, you should not throw a buzzbait. Now, on occasion, if I'm throwing a white one and you're throwing a black one, maybe, but I think in general, you need to be, there's fish knocking all around in here. You need to be doing something different than I'm doing.
Yes.
So again, if I want to put you in a position to catch fish, and I told you this earlier, so one of the guys that I thought was, one of the best fishermen there ever was in my lifetime in East Texas was a guy named Gary Elberton, who we lost a number of years ago, who sadly most guys don't even know who he is. But Gary and I were having breakfast one morning at Toledo Tackle, and he said to me, a measure of a boater, he said, if you can't catch a fish and win a tournament, you probably shouldn't be doing it. He said a measure of a boater is being on enough fish that a co-angler can catch them too. And I took that to heart. My co-anglers have almost always caught fish. Now I can't help it when I get a guy who can't flip. He needs to be home practicing, and we're going to do a video about that this afternoon. There are things you high school and college kids and even adults we've got a lot of adults getting into tournament fishing now because their kids are fishing and they're like, hey, this is fun. And most of us are frustrated athletes from our childhood who, you know, I can't run anymore, so I got to find something else to compete with. But there's some stuff you can do away from the water to get much better at this game besides just map study. So we'll talk about some of that this afternoon and post another video about that. But I totally lost my train of thought there.
Well, I was going to ask you, you know, what do co-anglers do that, you know, infuriate you besides the buzzbait flying across your ear thing, which no co-angler should be.
You know, I hate to tick guys off. One of them is light a cigarette in my boat.
Ah, okay, yeah.
And some guys will do it without asking, and some guys will ask. And my answer always is, man, I'd rather you didn't. And I've had Bill Johnson, my old team partner, good Lord, Bill Johnson burned more seats and more holes in my seats and my carpet. He was fighting a fish one day, and I look over and there's about this much ash hanging off his cigarette, and it falls off and burns right through his line. And he's like, oh, he broke me off. And I'm like, no, Bill, he didn't. Look where your line, it was burned through that far out of the reel. But dipping and smoking in my boat are two things that, and
that's common courtesy.
You know, and I saw the other day one of the college kids had a big no smoking on his glove box over there, a sticker. And I know if you are addicted to that nasty stuff, it's hard to go a day without smoking. But gosh, that's one that gets me. Another one, my biggest worry, this is pretty funny in tournament fishing, is can you park my trailer without crashing? I've had somebody crash my trailer. If you can't back my truck or park my trailer, that's okay, just tell me. Yeah. I am 100%, look, I do it 80% of the time by myself anyway. So my truck, you cannot see the trailer looking over your shoulder. You have to be, well, you saw this morning, you have to be able to back it with the mirrors. If you can't back that, tell me. Otherwise, just don't be overly aggressive. You know, if I'm gonna pull up and fish that laydown right there, don't fire it over my shoulder. And what I have typically done is I will say to a guy, that's not your right to make that cast. Don't do that again.
Right.
And if he does it again, I can make your life miserable. I've only in my career done it twice, and both times the guys got the message and quit doing what they were doing. But it ain't Major League Fishing, right? Or not Major League. What's the one, match fishing, where there's the line through the boat? You can throw in front of the gunwale, the one Joe Thomas does.
Yeah.
But don't throw past me. Don't throw down my grass line.
Most guys will tell you, you know what, whatever the front of the boat is pointed at, that's mine. You know, just and it's almost like you guys really do have a smaller cast window than the co-angler.
Sure.
I mean, because a lot of my guys, they don't really care if I cast, you know, up here,
right,
just off of your left, you know, almost a 90 to your left in a sense. They don't care. I always ask though too. I'm always trying to figure out like how to make this relationship the best possible. You know, I always ask, hey, do you mind if I film in your boat? Because I've had guys say no, and I'm like, okay, that's very fine. I hadn't thought about that. Or I also will say, you know, I'll gauge his reaction too. Most guys have always been like, oh man, that's awesome, share that with me, cool, that'd be cool. You know, some guys are like, you know, in that hesitation. Then I'm like, okay, this guy probably doesn't want me to, so I don't. Yeah. That's common courtesy. I was raised on that, like treat others how you want to be treated.
He grew up in Texas. He may not live down here anymore, but he grew up in Texas, so he gets it.
Yeah, you do lose a lot of that, some of that mentality that you know, it's hard to retain that when you get all these other influences from your environment, and especially living up in the north. And the north is very aggressive. People are in your face. And you know, I tried when I first got up there to bring that Texas common courtesy, just, you know, the I'm driving down the road, oh, you want to go fast, buddy? I'll get right over, let you on by, go and have a blast. You know, that is not how life operates up there in the north. It is, I'm on you, you need to move.
There's some really courteous people up there, but yeah, it is a different, it's a different, I lived in New York for a short period of time, and it is a different mentality. You know, the only other thing I would comment that makes me crazy, and I almost always cover it with guys right off the bat, is if I miss a fish, don't, and I struggle with it because I team fish, right? If you and I are team fishing and you throw up there and a fish misses it, my bait's right in there. Matter of fact, even if you get a bite, my bait's right in there behind it. So I will say to a guy, I'm not going to fire on your missed fish, you don't fire on mine. Now, if you miss a fish and your worm's messed up, I will ask you, you care if I pitch in there? And if you say no, or if you say no, hey, that's cool, you missed that fish.
I've definitely had boaters do that on me, and on a day, you know, to where I blanked, to where it's like, oh man, we're catching them on wood, I just broke off on wood, whoop, there comes the boaters right back into there. And I was like, God, but I just knew that wood was there. I just found wood you didn't know about.
Yeah, that's not cool.
And you caught a fish. But I will absolutely, I mean, I'll see them miss fish, and it's not like I'm a fire there. My God, no. Oh man, no.
Yeah, to me that's a no deal. And the one other thing is, so I have, oh my gosh, God smiled on me. I won a BFL on the Red River at Natchitoches, and so on the Red River at Natchitoches, a 4-pounder is like catching a 10-pounder over here, or an 8-pounder over here. And early that morning, I stabbed a 4-pounder 4+ on a crankbait on a square bill, pulled it by the boat, and my co-angler swiped at it with the net, hooked the fish, the crankbait in the outside of the net, and just tried to lift him in, and he dropped that 4-pounder in the lake. And I swear to you, at that point, now he watches my stuff, so we've talked about this since then.
Sure, he feels bad.
He then swiped at another one later, and I yelled in his ear, and I'm like, just put the net down and I'll handle this. And what it was adrenaline, and it happens to all of us. But I pretty much anymore, unless it's a guy, now luckily down here, we know a lot of our co-anglers because they're team partners and whatever else. But if I know a guy doesn't tournament fish a lot, I just say, if I get a fish on, and I rope most of my fish, you know, unless it's 3+, I'll just say, would you lay the net here? And I net my own fish. Because and if you don't know what I'm talking about, the way to net a fish is never from the tail, right? They're faster than you can ever be in the water. And you want to just put that net in the water and let that guy, boater, partner, whatever he is, co-boater, fish into the net.
I would say put it near the water because they'll.
Well, that's a good
Yeah.
point. So get it down there ready, and when he says go, go.
Because you don't want to be up here trying to cover this distance.
No, that's right.
You want to be right near it so that you can. I mean, some of the best ones I've seen is just real quick execution to get it down the water before that fish gets there.
And so let's talk about equipment just for a second there. This is funny to me. So I have a very expensive Freybill extendable net, right?
I have a rubber.
It's super heavy. No, it's not rubber. Because that rubber, to me, you can't move that rubber through the. It's great to get a crankbait out of, but at that point, I'm worried about getting that fish out. And I tell you, with my eyesight, you might see me in the floor for 20 minutes trying to get a crankbait out of a net.
Can't lose 20 minutes there in a tournament either.
Right, but that net is too heavy to fish by myself with. So for me, although that net's great when you're fishing around cables and you got to go over and get a fish, so I'll have it at Grand and I'll have it at Texoma next weekend. I prefer an inexpensive, lightweight net because they're so much easier to handle on my own. And I don't care if it's short handle, long handle. I just want something that's very, very lightweight and very easy to get.
If they enter the water, especially they can shoot into the water a whole lot faster. I didn't realize that. It was a co-angler on my boat that brought that up to me. He's like, man, he's like, I did that fast, but man, if you had just that other net.
You had a rubber one?
I do. I have an Ego, really nice one, and I love it. But you know, I will probably utilize the one that came with my Skeeter to fish tournaments with.
Yeah, it makes a difference. Let's go catch some fish. They keep blowing up around us.